Hello there, it's Arlene here again from Pennies to Plenty, and I am back today with another audio blog post for you. This one is on an important topic, which is how to avoid cases open against you and returns on Poshmark. Let's dig in. It's the notification that many sellers dread. Case opened for your sale. You get that sinking feeling in your heart. Why did the buyer open a case against me? What's wrong with what I sold? And how do I win this case? While Poshmark doesn't allow returns for fit or buyer regret, if an item isn't as described, Poshmark deems that a legitimate reason to grant a return and refund the buyer. Sometimes the reasons for open cases are legitimate, and sometimes they're ridiculous. But no matter the reason, if Poshmark favors the buyer, then you're out of a sale and may even be on the hook to cover the cost of return shipping. That's why I want to go over a few top Poshmark seller mistakes that I've seen and how to avoid them so that you don't end up with cases opened against you. Before we go on, if you are not already on Poshmark, you can sign up with my code SFGirl2015. That's SFGIRL2015, and you will receive a free $10 bonus for signing up. Okay, let's get back into things. Here is the first mistake I see. The first one is not disclosing flaws. And this is the most common reason for return cases. It's that the seller didn't disclose everything that was wrong with an item. This is sometimes a subjective issue since a lot of Poshmark, what's on there is secondhand clothing, and people have different ideas about the condition and wearability of secondhand clothing. But it's not too hard to state the facts. I have been on the receiving end of purchases that weren't as nice as described, like earrings missing rhinestones, or shirts with stains and pilling, shoes with some scuff marks. Those were facts that easily could have been disclosed, but weren't. And I think a lot of people, they don't open cases. They just accept the item. They accept that they got something in poorer condition than they were hoping for. The stains might not be that noticeable, so the shirt can be worn. In my case, I could still wear the shoes even with the scuff marks, even though I retired them soon after. So I accepted the item. It's a disappointing experience for the buyer and can leave a negative impression of Poshmark in the buyer's mind. As a seller, I hope that my buyers are thrilled with what they receive and not lukewarm or disappointed by it. And that's why I think it's so important to disclose any and all flaws. How do you avoid this issue? Well, first, look closely at the items you're selling multiple times under bright light. I've looked at things 2, 3, 4, 5 times and only found it after looking a couple times. I found some flaws or only seen some flaws under bright light. So you really have to be very careful when you pick up secondhand clothing that you inspect very closely to see if there's anything at all wrong. The next thing is to give thorough descriptions. This includes the great things about the item as well as its flaws. Another thing you'll want to do is consider what you want to know about the item if you were purchasing it for yourself. And that should give you a good indication of what a buyer might want to know as well. And then if you're not sure how to describe something, you can browse through the listings and see how others disclose flaws about their items, or you can Google or kind of look it up based on whatever description you give it and see how other people describe it better. The next problem is people not describing items. So sometimes I come across a listing with 1 or 2 pictures or only stock photos and a one-line description. It's secondhand, so there's no guarantee that the item is in good enough condition to wear. I have to wonder who's going to buy these items because that buyer is taking a pretty big risk. Short descriptions, limited pictures, that puts the burden on the buyer to gather information about the item. We have to ask, what's its condition? Are there any flaws? Can you add more pictures? I have many times seen items up where the descriptions and pictures could have been better. People have asked for that, and the seller has not updated their listing to reflect people's questions. Most of the time, people are going to simply pass on the item. Unless it's super popular or a steal of a deal, they're going to pass. A lot of shoppers don't want to take the time to ask questions. And they may think that a short description and limited pictures means that the seller is trying to hide a flaw. The seller might be rushing through listings and maybe not taking good care of their business. It could mean a number of things to a potential buyer, but all not good. So, how do you avoid this issue? First thing is to provide the brand name and style name of an item if you know it. This is great for search engine optimization so that your items come up in Poshmark and Google search results. It also tells the buyer what they're receiving. There's no doubt if they know the brand and style name, they can look it up for themselves and say, ah, yes, that's exactly what I want. You should also provide a thorough written description of the item, whether it's in excellent condition or it has flaws, and then take enough pictures to show the item in its entirety. Poshmark allows for 8 pictures. You don't have to use all 8 pictures if it's not needed, but definitely you want to take enough that you show the item well. Let's move on to number 3. And the third problem is listing the incorrect size. I've come across listings where people say that an item runs small. Instead of listing the item by the size or number on the size tag, like a medium, they'll list it by how they think it fits, like a small. This is a sure way to get an open case against you. If the buyer doesn't like the item or it doesn't fit, they can request a return. And they can say that the incorrect size was stated. And they would be correct too, right? So the buyer would likely win because there's no disputing that the listed size was incorrect. How do you avoid this issue? First thing, list the size on the tag. Later in the description, you can say that the item runs small or large or fits like this and that, but you want to list the size that's on the actual tag. The next thing you can do is also decide not to comment on the fit, because you don't have to state that the item doesn't run true to size. For all you know, the item won't run small or large to the buyer. It may fit them perfectly. It's also commonly known that some brands don't fit true to size, and the frequent buyers of those brands, they'll know that. They know their size, they're going to buy accordingly, and so they may not think it runs small or large. Another thing to do is to add a request to know the brand sizing. Sometimes I do this. I add it in the description. The buyer should be familiar with the brand sizing because it's not standard. I'm requesting that the buyer know for themselves their size in that brand. And I say that I can't guarantee fit. That really puts the onus on the buyer to know their sizing and that it's going to fit them. The other thing I do is to add measurements. Not everyone likes to do this. I like to do it because when you add measurements, again, the onus is also placed on the buyer to ensure the fit. I have shoppers ask me about fit from time to time, and I sell every size available in my closet. So there may be some things that are extra small, some things that are extra large. I can't tell if they all fit true to size because I can't wear them all. Instead, I ask the buyer to compare the measurements of the item to something they already have in their closet, and they can figure out the fit for themselves. Okay, we're on to the fourth problem. The fourth one is conversion of sizes incorrectly. And this is a tricky thing to handle because there's all kinds of sizing out there. There's European sizing, US sizing, Asian sizing for clothes, for shoes, and it can be different in a variety of countries. Stone Cold Fox and Ted Baker, for example, in the US, they use a 0 to 4 system. Torrid uses a similar system for plus size clothing. And this becomes even more confusing because there are already US women's and junior sizes between a 0 and a 4 that fit differently than those before, like from Stone Cold Fox and Ted Baker. So it can all be very confusing and difficult for someone to know what size they're going to get. I recently sold a size 1 jacket by Stone Cold Fox, and I tried to put a 1 in the custom size box. Poshmark wouldn't let me because they said there's already an option for a size 1. The problem that a US 1 is a junior size, and I wasn't selling a junior product. I didn't want it to show up as a junior product because, again, then my listing would be incorrect. If the buyer wanted to open a case against me saying I listed it as the wrong size, they might win. In this case, I listed the item under the closest US women's size and stated very clearly in the description both the brand size and the standard US size. The buyer gave me a 5-star rating, so no case open there. How to avoid this? First thing is to add the brand's size conversion chart. You can go online and find conversion charts for almost any company out there, I just take a screenshot and add it to my listing. The second thing is make the description clear. I will add both the standard US size and the size that the brand uses. I will put both of those in. And third is I add a picture of the brand and size tag of the item I'm selling. I want it to show exactly what the buyer is going to get. I'll add measurements. And then lastly, some people might think this is a little overkill, but I have done this before. I will confirm with the buyer that they know what size they're receiving. Sometimes I ask the buyer if they read through the description, and just to make sure that they know they're getting a size 0 or 2 or 4 or whatever. And if they say yes, then great. They know what they're receiving. It's likely to fit them. Problem number 5 is pretty similar. It's incorrect shoe size conversions. And the reason I put this is because Poshmark provides shoe size conversions for European sizes, but they're incorrect. So the European sizes don't convert to US sizes like 36 equals 6, 37 equals 7, the way they have them listed. And you may list a shoe that shows a 37 on the sole, and Poshmark displays it to the feed and your followers as a US 7. Then the size 7 buyer buys it, tries them on, and realizes they don't fit her. And that's another possible open case. Just because they might say that the incorrect size was listed. They said, oh, I purchased a 7, but actually it says 37 on the sole, so it wasn't correct. I always list by what's on the shoe. If the shoe says 38, I use the custom size option and enter 38. Now you might be thinking this will affect the searchability of your listings because a size 7 buyer is going to search by size 7. They're likely not going to search 38. But I find it worth it. I prefer to have a more accurate listing even if it means that sometimes not as many people are going to view it. How do I avoid this? I will add a picture of the size on the shoe. It's usually on the sole or in the back inner heel area. On sneakers, you can find the size under the tongue. I also list the shoe by the size written on it. Don't rely on Poshmark conversions. Then I will repeat the actual shoe size again in the listings descriptions. If you're feeling confident, you can add here what the shoe converts to in US sizing. But if I'm selling a European size shoe, I will just tell the buyer, I'll just suggest it and say, oh, make sure you know your European size so that it'll fit you. Sometimes I'll add the manufacturer's size conversion chart from like a European shoe size to American. And again, if you really want to know that the buyer knows what they're getting, you can just ask them, hey, are you sure that you want this size shoe because it's a 37 European size? I want to make sure that it's going to fit you. And most people actually are pretty thankful for that. They are happy that you've reached out to them to confirm that it's what they want. Moving on to problem number 6, and that is using stock photos. I get it. Stock photos, they're great because professionals, they make the clothes look good, far better than most sellers could. The clothes are modeled and styled and shown in the best light, and they're made for marketing. The problem is that photos like that are copyrighted. So it's okay to use them if you have permission from the brand or the photo's owners, but for the most part, big brands, they're not giving us permission to use their photos. You risk the chance of having your listings taken down without warning. And if you continue to use these stock photos and receive more warnings, you risk being banned from the platform. Whoever owns the photos could also take legal action against you. I haven't heard of that happening in the setting of secondhand selling, but I have heard of that happening as a blogger to other bloggers. So people do take legal action from time to time. You have to be careful about using the pictures, especially if they've requested that you not. Platforms like Mercari are strict about enforcing no use of stock photos. If you put one up, by the next day it will be gone and you will receive a warning. Poshmark and eBay, the other places I sell, they are not as strict about enforcing it. And from what I've seen, it seems Poshmark takes down their listings only when the brand has approached them and required it. How do you avoid this issue of using copyrighted photos? Well, the first is just take the best photos that you can. Find better backgrounds, add more light, use a photo editing app. You can do a lot to photos with practice and patience, and your photo taking skills will improve, which will serve you better in the long run. And the second thing is to direct the shopper to pictures online. I write in my listings to search for the style name on Google to see modeled pictures. I first look on Google to ensure that there are some pictures available and that they're easy to find and look at. Then I will tell potential buyers in my listing to just Google the style name. Yeah, it's an extra step for some people, and some people might not want to do it, but it will save me from some serious legal trouble or even just from losing my listings, having them deleted. Okay, we're now on number 7. Problem number 7 is not having packaging material. One of the most frustrating things when I was a new seller was making a quick sale and not being able to package up because I didn't have the right materials for it. And I'm not talking about pretty packaging either. Poshmark likes to show packages with pretty tissue paper and ribbons and little gifts attached. All of that's not necessary. I mean, just having basics like tissue paper and boxes and thank you cards. So, to avoid this problem, go ahead and gather the items you need for shipping as soon as you start selling. And then make sure that you have a way to ship larger or fragile or odd shaped items before you even list the items. Right now, I have several little fragile houses that I want to list on Poshmark. I have at least 10 of them, but I haven't been able to list them all yet because I don't have a way to ship them. So I worry that they're going to sell and I will freak out about how to ship them. I am just waiting until I get boxes and packaging material, and then I will list the rest of them up. The other thing you can do is to order shipping materials from USPS online. You can get priority mail boxes and envelopes for free. This is a great way to get your packaging material without having to pay anything. Okay, now we are on number 8. The number 8 problem is not packaging items well. Most of the time you won't have an issue shipping clothing in USPS envelopes and boxes. Most sales are, of clothes, single pieces. They're under 5 pounds. It's not a big deal to ship them. But the other thing to consider is that sometimes they can get damaged. The worst thing is using paper boxes that get wet during the winter or rainy and snowy months. They can disintegrate and leave things exposed to the weather or rough handling. I've even had my item fall out of a box before. I don't know how that happened. It was a sealed box. The item was never seen again. The buyer received an empty box. Thankfully, we were both refunded. I'll tell you a quick story about one buyer that I came across. She said that she bought some nice flats. They kind of look like ballet suede shoes, very pretty. What the seller did was put them in a very flat paper mailer. And so when the seller folded over the flap to seal it, the adhesive from that flap, it attached itself to the shoe. And so when the buyer opened the package, well, the shoes were damaged. The adhesive was stuck to the shoe. They may have even gotten water damaged. I don't know. It was just not very good. So that was really poor packaging, made for a bad experience for the buyer. The seller, I don't even know if she got her money for it. All in all, though, it was not packaged well. So how do you avoid something like this? First, ship items with waterproof materials. I like to use the free USPS Tyvek envelopes, or I'll use plastic bags to wrap an item before putting it into the shipping box. I like to use small plastic bags for protecting my items when I put them in storage. And sometimes, because I know plastic bags are not very environmentally friendly, sometimes for shipping, I'll just take the item out of the plastic bag or wrap it in tissue paper and send it off that way if I know that it's not going anywhere wet. And then I just keep the plastic bag and use it again. I will also ship items in a box. So I don't send shoes, purses, accessories in soft envelopes because they're bound to hit other items. They can get squished, broken, scuffed, all of that stuff. Use a box to prevent this. And the last thing is to add bubble wrap or padding to your items. If a fragile item doesn't fit a box well because the item is small and the box is too big, when it ships, it's going to shuffle around a lot and it might break. So I would use some bubble wrap or air pillows or any other kind of padding, even newspaper, stuff it into the box to protect it from moving too much. We are on to number 9. The ninth issue I've seen is shipping too slowly. Now, this won't necessarily cause you to have an open case and return, but we do live in an age of instant everything. Recently, I learned that I could get free 2-hour delivery of Whole Foods groceries with my Amazon Prime account. How crazy is that? I couldn't believe it. So, when companies offer fast shipping and delivery for just about everything, people come to expect that level of service, even from individual small sellers like us. Being in this customer oriented business means that faster shipping is going to result in happier buyers. Like I said, you won't get a case open due to slow shipping, but may get some stars knocked off your rating. And if you haven't shipped in 7 days, the buyer can request to cancel the sale. You don't want that, right? I definitely want my sale so I can send off the goods and hopefully it'll be accepted and make the money. How do you avoid shipping too slowly? First, Poshmark recommends shipping within 3 days of a sale. I always say sooner is better. And secondly, let the buyer know if you're not able to ship quickly. Some people, they say, I only go to the post office 2 times a week, Wednesday and Saturday. That's okay. Just let people know that you can't make it until the next Wednesday or Saturday. If there's a holiday weekend coming up, I'll tell a buyer that I can't ship on Monday because the post office is closed. I'll ship out on Tuesday. And most buyers, they appreciate that notice. One of the worst things about selling is having to deal with returns. And you're excited about a sale, the money in your pocket. You don't want to find out only a few days later that maybe you didn't earn that money after all because the buyer wants a return. That's a big boo. That's why I use the tips that I mentioned because I want to give myself the best chance of a smooth sale. I'd be interested to hear more about the open cases you've encountered, either as a buyer or a seller. If you have any comments to share, please do add them below. And until next time, happy thrifting, shopping, and poshing. I will talk to you soon. Bye.